For those who lot grew up poor, what did you consider a luxury? My mother used to consider any kind of cereal a luxury. They only had one box a month. My mom could somehow only find a way to afford Raisin Bran. I didn't try the fancy ones like Reese's Puffs or Fruit Loops until I moved out on my own. Maybe your mom was just trying to raise you slightly healthier. I don't know if anyone can relate, but in about 3rd maybe 4th grade, me and my twin brother had a music class where we were both required to buy a recorder, like a plastic flute thing. Well, my mom said we didn't have the money, so my twin brother and I tore the whole house up in search of $6 for 2 recorders. We brought a Ziploc bag full of change, pennies, nickels, dimes, etc. I think the teacher felt sorry for us, cause she paid for our recorders when the rest of the students left the room. Gave us the Ziploc bag back. Thank you, Mrs. Albrecht. You had a great educator. For my school's Spirit Week, they had a thrift shop day where most everyone dressed in old ratty clothes or the weirdest stuff they could find in a thrift shop. Needless to say, as someone whose clothes were 80% secondhand, it was an eye-opener. Oh my gosh, that's super short-sighted on the school's side. You underestimate the class cruelty of the US education system. For example, lunch debt. Until the age of 12, I thought that you weren't allowed to buy things that weren't on sale. My mom only bought things when they were on sale and or she had a coupon. So I thought that the non-sale items weren't being sold. Same. My mom has a funny story about that one. She says very little me was with her at the store, and I kept asking if random items were for sale. She'd be confused, but would say yes, and I'd ask if we could get them. She'd say no. It took her a while to figure out that I had confused the terms for sale and on sale. I knew we only bought things that were on sale, so I was asking if each thing was on sale before I asked for it. A new winter coat. I don't remember having a new winter coat until I was probably 14 or 15. They had always been hand-me-downs from my cousins. They were usually at least 10 years old by the time I got them, and the stuffing would be all clumped up. I almost never even had winter coats, since all my older siblings were female. I would just wear a decent hoodie over a ton of layers of old clothes. When I got my first new coat, I experienced warmth like I had never felt before, and it was so amazing. New clothes. I grew up pretty poor, no TV, no toys, but had a Sears catalog. My dad got in a serious accident when I was in 4th grade and almost lost his life. He won a small settlement from the community college he was working at, and I was able to buy new clothes for the first time in my life. Before this, all I ever had were hand-me-downs from my cousin and donation clothes from the church. Most were worn to the point of having patches on the knees. The worst part about getting new clothes for the first time is I felt terrible the whole time picking out new clothes, because I always felt like a financial burden to my parents. I remember going to Miller's Outpost and picking out typical 80s clothes, op, TNC, etc. Close bracket. It's funny how growing up poor affects my everyday choices. For better or worse, it'll never outgrow some of the feelings I had as a poor kid, and I feel for any kid like this endure a childhood of poverty. It will affect them and their choices for the rest of their life. My folks always had 3 meals a day for us, but clothes were always a treat. It might be a pair of pants and a shirt, but my folks always made sure it was something that we were able to pick out, and it always felt so special. They sacrificed a lot for it. In fact, my mom told me a few years ago that in order to provide that, my parents didn't buy new clothes or much of anything for well over a decade when we were younger. With my first real job out of school, I was able to take my dad to a shop and have him pick out a suit of his choice and get it fitted. He's confessed that it's one of the moments that's really stuck with him. He still has that suit and has worn it to both my sisters and my weddings. But yeah, some of those feelings and habits don't really go away. Regarding clothes, they still get worn till they can't be patched anymore, and I loathe to throw them away. I gotta stop there, because this is actually making me surprisingly emotional. Greater than sign. With my first real job out of school, I was able to take my dad to a shop and have him pick out a suit of his choice and get it fitted. He's confessed that it's one of the moments that's really stuck with him. He still has that suit and has worn it to both my sisters and my weddings. This paragraph alone made me cry. 3. Buying new clothes. The days I justify ordering all kinds of dumb stuff online, but I've always felt a mental block on buying new clothes. It feels like an unjustified luxury because I always got by on second-hand clothes and free t-shirts. Between grandma and mum, they made all the boys' shirts and all the girls' dresses. We also got the hand-me-down clothes from within the family and cousins. I had one cousin her lot pretty much got all my hand-me-down clot. Hairs. She said several times how great it was to get handmade clothes. Hairs. Taking a bath. I mean, we bathed every night. But it was by heating up water that we would go to the park down the road to get in 5-gallon jugs and filling up a mop bucket to wash off with. Staying over at a friend or family member's house and getting to take an actual shower was amazing though. The only times I remember taking showers at a friend's house, the parents thought it was normal and good for us to shower together. Between ages of 6 to 11 this happened with a couple of friends. Awkward. Air conditioning. Sometimes we had a jacked up old window unit that would cool down my parents' room on the hottest of summer nights and we would sleep in sleeping bags on their floor. Sometimes it was broke. Sometimes it just wasn't hot enough to justify running it. Never during the day though. That's what the library was for. We had a window unit in the kitchen and we barely ran it because it was really only big enough to slightly cool down the kitchen. So my mom would flip it on when she was cooking, or if we were eating at the table. We did have an attic fan that we could switch on, and it did help to cool things off. But we slept with windows open, fans on us, and the attic fan going when it was hot. I deliver pizza and my new car has no AC. I fucking feel for you. I would come home from a 7-hour shift just dead because dealing with the heat is so fucking exhausting. My grandma would take me to Chuck E. Cheese on my day and give me a bunch of tokens. That cigar was slugs! Exclamation mark. Charles Entertainment Cheese. A poor orphan rat her lot never got to celebrate his birthday, so now he has a place where every kid can have a birthday. Oh, you talking about pizza at Child Casino? Restaurants were definitely somewhere at the top of my list. I lived through the tail end of apartheid in South Africa, so we weren't allowed into restaurants. Also, non-iceberg lettuce. Dairy products, like a full glass of milk, cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, flavored milk, lawns, a dining table and family meals at the table. Vacations that didn't involve staying with relatives. That's tough, man. How are you doing now? I grew up post-apartheid, poor and white, and I have to say it still looks better than anything you must have experienced. School parties where everyone brought something to share for lunch. If you don't bring something, you don't get to participate. I brought 2 carrots after not being able to afford school lunch for 2 years. Even the teacher laughed at me. My young self just decided that day that some people don't deserve lunch. I know the feeling. Our language classes always had potluck day, where kids would bring dishes from whatever language the class was. I took French for 3 years and 2 of those years, my family couldn't afford to participate, and my teacher decided to let me participate after she saw how much food everyone else brought. But she made a point to berate me for it. I didn't eat out of guilt. Well, maybe a cup or soda or something. People like that shouldn't be teachers. Renting a movie from Blockbuster the first weekend of every month. My brother and I got to pick any movie we wanted, as long as it wasn't rated R. On really special nights, we even got a 2-liter bottle of Sprite for the family to share. I used to go through hundreds of feet of all kinds of vine, thorn, brush, plenty of poison oak too. Be covered in burrs, chiggers, ticks to get at wild blackberries. They had thorns too, and fill my milk jugs with them. They were down in a low boggy place that was just inaccessible. No trail, no openings. Just a hell wall of green that led up to some swamp, bog here and there. So plenty of mosquitoes too. Because my folks sure weren't buying them by the pint. Not even as good as the wild ones. And once I had tasted them, I fucking wanted them. Those things were my girls before puberty. I'm sure I went through more to get my snack of them than I ever did for anything in my life, and I wasn't even a fat kid. I just Obsession. Come back home all bloodied and scratched up, my dad telling me I looked like I jumped inside a sack full of cats. Helping himself to my jugs of treasures. Mom with the aspirin. The cure for it all. Fresh picked blackberries and blueberries in a bowl with milk and sugar on them takes me back to growing up. Staying at someone's house, how it wasn't P. Or like a relative or friend. And their house was also so clean. Beautiful. Foul. Pictures on the wall. Or knickknacks on the counter. Tear and carpet you could play on because it was clean. I spent my entire teenage years hiding where I lived. Bed. I used to love flipping through home furniture catalogs like IKEA and fantasizing about what my dream bedroom would be, complete with framed posters, a professional study table with a desk lamp and office studs, dresses that matched the hamper and trash bin, and an actual framed bed. My family didn't really have anyone over ever because we were honestly embarrassed we didn't have all the furnishings of a proper house. Actual real milk. My mum used to buy something called 5 pints. It was powdered milk that you added cold water to and shook to make milk. I remember the lumps of it in my cereal. Lol, we called it scared water. Hated that stuff. Christmas presents. I was a kid, and one year for Christmas, when I was young, before I could recognize that I was making any kind of larger point, I said that I wanted my parents to just give my presents to the kids. Lot didn't have anything. But I didn't know that I was one of those kids. I wonder what they thought when a kid said that to them. I wonder if it hurt them or inspired them. The really important thing is relationships. The people in our lives aren't some kind of replacement for things. People are the most valuable things to us. Fudge the garbage. Don't buy anything this Christmas. Just spend it with your loved ones and genuinely express your love for them. That's the value. Things are garbage. People make a difference. I was 12 and asked for a typical Thanksgiving big family dinner with everyone for my birthday, August. Still one of the best presents ever. I lucked out having a family that really enjoys spending time together. Nowadays we have our Thanksgiving the next weekend after, and Christmas in January. Maybe not this year though, so that there is never any rush or conflict for spouse families. And all 30 plus of my sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, grandkids etc. all agree our get-togethers are way more fun and relaxed. Hershey's chocolate syrup. I was used to a 8 to 12 ounce glass of milk with a feather touch squeeze of drops of chocolate add when I was around 6 or 7. It would barely tinge the milk a light malt color, but that's all mom would allow for years. 13 years later my baby sister is old enough to have her vocalized demands and the like. I'm old enough to serve her while mom ignores her. But we are doing so much better financially, so we always have a bottle of syrup on hand, and she gets the big 24 ounce tumblers of milk and I have to squeeze enough syrup out to make the chocolate dark muddy brown, or she cries I'm ripping her off. OMG, I remember my mom getting angry if I used more than a tablespoon. Barely tinge the milk a light malt dying. That's exactly it. A hot shower. Cold showers were always available. But when you scraped enough cash to get some diesel fuel and get the burner to kick on long enough to have a hot shower, man, absolutely nothing better. Everything. Actual pajamas were a big one. I always slept in hand-me-down t-shirts. Ordering a drink when you eat out as well. Bottled water. I remember feeling like the fanciest person ever when I had it for the first time. Going places during school vacation. The kids would be all like, what? Question mark? Yeah, I've never been to this amusement park. Question mark? No. Trisha. My family doesn't even have a car, which is another luxury to me. I always felt so stupid when everyone would ask where did you go this summer? KFC takeout was the best night of the year growing up. Only got it once a year, but man was it the best night ever. Sandwich meat. I remember all too vividly getting out the bread to make a sandwich and being able only spread mustard on the bread and calling it a sandwich. Also, firewood. Growing up in a house with no heat, firewood was not only a luxury but a necessity. We'd spend the spring and summer gathering wood and slowly splitting and stacking it to burn throughout the winter. Poor planning could lead to cold mornings and a desperate search for free timber. I remember driving around in a truck looking for people that cut down a tree and put the wood on the side of the road so we could take it home and split it. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.